Hey everyone, so today I'm going to be doing a video and I feel like this is going to be a long one or maybe one that will be in multiple parts. I felt like I wanted to make this video after I had did my plan with me video for this week and I had talked a little bit about like high school and college and back to school and stuff like that, and I kind of felt like I wanted to do maybe like a little bit of a advice kind of video for people going to college, or maybe a little bit will apply to like people going to high school and stuff like that. I just thought that I would kind of explain to you guys a little bit about my college experience, maybe some things that I took from it, and hopefully it can help any of you guys out there. So starting out, I will talk a little bit about my, I guess, college experience and situation and stuff like that, just so that you kind of have an idea of where I'm coming from with my experience. So I went to a relatively, kind of like a medium small kind of college. My college had about 8,000 students or so, and I didn't live on campus at all during my 4 years there. It was in the same city that I'd lived my entire life, and it was only about like a 15 or 20 minute drive from my house. So I didn't really feel the need to live on campus and spend the extra money when I could be staying at home and saving that money. So unfortunately I won't be able to give you any advice on like dorms or campus living or roommates or anything like that, but like I said, there's 1,000 other, you know, college advice videos on YouTube. And I majored in graphic design, and at my university it was a much smaller program. So I went to a small school to begin with, and then I was in a very small program. So I really did kind of get more of an intimate, kind of really small class style with my classes, with the exception of like my gen ed classes, general education. I think the biggest class I was in was probably about 75-80 people, and since my degree was a bit smaller at my university, the way it worked was the first 2 semesters you would take these classes called fundamental classes, so that would be like your basic drawing class, color, you know, you took a class learning how to use Photoshop and stuff like that, and just kind of the basic fundamental classes. And then at the end of your spring semester of your freshman year, you would apply to get into the graphic design program. So what that meant was that you had to put together a portfolio of all the stuff you'd worked on over the last 2 semesters, and you would submit it to the faculty of the program, who would then evaluate who was able to be let into the program. And if you weren't accepted into the program, you would have to either like retake those fundamental classes or resubmit the following spring. And each year at my school they only accept 20 students into the graphic design program for that year. Just naturally as it goes, the classes kind of got a little bit smaller anyway, because, you know, not all 20 of those people make it all the way through to graduation. I ended up graduating with about 10 people total in my my degree, and it was an all-girl class, so that was kind of fun. So that's a little bit about my background of kind of my college experience. Like I said, I commuted to school, I never lived on campus, I was a graphic design major, and it was a relatively small school. So now I'll kind of get into my, I guess, advice. So first I'm going to start off just briefly talking a little bit towards like high school students, or if you're going into high school or anything like this. Take a lot of AP classes. I talked a bit about this in my Plan With Me video this week, so if you want to hear a little bit more of my opinions on that, definitely go watch that video. Take a lot of AP classes if you can handle the workload. The more AP classes you can take and excel at and do well on the AP test, the better opportunity you have of getting college credit. And that's classes that you don't have to pay for and that your scholarship doesn't have to go towards or anything like that. So if you can handle the workload, honestly take as many AP classes as you can comfortably take, because they really are super valuable. I ended up getting like 2 college credits out of the way when I graduated high school because of my AP classes, so that was really, really helpful, because that was less money that I had to spend on a class, because it proved that I already knew what I needed to know from that class, so I didn't have to take those classes. Another thing I forgot to mention, I ended up getting 2 scholarships. One was a scholarship from the university I went to, and the other one was a state scholarship. I know it's it's a bitch to like have to fill out scholarship forms and writing essays and stuff like that when you're on top of, you know, applying for colleges and stuff. But 100% it is so worth it, and I know it really sucks, and I don't want to sound like your mom, like bitching at you to do your homework and stuff, but honestly, as many scholarships as you can get, the better off you're gonna be. So now you've taken all the AP classes, maybe you've gotten some AP credit, you got some good scholarships from high school, now you're entering college, and a little bit about what I think about college and some advice I have for that. Textbooks. Again, I talked about textbooks in my Plan With Me video. I really kind of got fucked over my first semester of college just because I didn't know any better. Never buy textbooks new. I mean, I can't think of a single reason, except for maybe like if it's a class like where you have maybe like a workbook or something. I had one class, it was a science class, that we had this like workbook that you obviously like had to write answers in and submit the papers and stuff like that. That's the only reason I can think of why you would need a brand new book or textbook if it's something like that. My first semester, I spent $450 on like 4 or 5 textbooks, and I could have saved myself so much money. I always looked up the ISBN number on like Amazon to see if they offered it through their textbook rentals, and always compare and see if you can find it cheaper. Sometimes there were occasions when I could like outright buy a used book that was cheaper than even renting it. A lot of the times I could either buy a textbook that I needed for, you know, maybe $20 or $30, which is a hell of a lot better than buying a textbook for $100 or $200, because I've done that before and it hurts my heart to have to pay that much money for a book, and you don't need to if you are a little bit resourceful. I always sold back my used books, and I like to use a website called Book Scouter. I could just type in the ISBN number and it would come up with like a list of different websites that were willing to buy back the book and for what price it was. So that was how I could kind of get the most out of selling back books. Another website a lot of people use that I've heard of is Chegg. I never actually used from it. I believe you can like rent books and maybe sell books and buy books from there. I personally haven't used it, but I've heard a lot of people say that it's a really good rental service. I've used a lot of the Amazon textbook rental stuff. I use that all the time. That was usually the best prices I could find, and it was really easy to use. You know, they send you the textbook, you have like a certain amount of time with it, you can always extend it and pay a little extra more, and then you just ship it back before the deadline, and you know, that was a lot easier than paying so much for a book. So another resource I used a lot was called ratemyprofessor.com. Now this you have to be very careful with, because you can't take these reviews of the professors as gospel. I also talked about this in my Plan With Me video, but just quickly, you know, I said that there's two types of people in the world. There are people who are going to review when they've had a great experience, and then there's people who are going to review when they've had a horrible experience. It is a little bit of like extremes. You're kind of going to hear all the good stuff about them, and you might hear all the horrible stuff about them. You're not going to get the overall average, I guess, impression of a professor, but most of the time, from what I've read from there, like I said, take it with a grain of salt, but a lot of the time I found that the information about professors was generally pretty accurate, I would say. One advice I always hear people say is never take 8 a.m.s. They are, you know, you're never gonna get out of bed and you're never gonna blah blah blah, and I hear you, because I am a 100% night person. I can stay up till 4 in the morning. But one thing for me, I had to take an 8 a.m. every semester of my college. 8 semesters is what I did, and every single semester I had to take an 8 a.m. because like I said, my classes were smaller, and they most of the time only offered one of a certain class. So if it was like a motion design class, there was only one of them, and it was at 8 a.m. and they didn't offer it until a year from then. So it was just kind of like, there was no way around an 8 a.m. It's not fun taking an 8 a.m. class, but sometimes you really just can't avoid it. So online classes. I have a love-hate relationship with online classes. The very first online class I took was, I think, my fall semester of my junior year. The thing about online classes is it's great because, you know, you don't have to be in a physical class at a specific time, so it's a little bit more easy to schedule around. One thing I didn't like was online classes cost more at my university, probably an extra like $100 to $200 per class if it was an online class, which still does not make sense to me, but whatever, because it's like you're not occupying a seat in a building with a professor that they have to pay. I don't know, maybe someone else knows why that makes sense, but to me it did not make any sense as to why an online class would cost more money than a traditional class. When you are not in a physical class like that, you do have to really stay on top of your work. It's easy to get behind, it's easy to say, oh, I'll do that later. I feel like I didn't get as much out of my online classes. I think I took a total of maybe four or five online classes total in my college career. It's kind of a toss-up because for me those were all gen ed classes that I took anyway. So I took a philosophy class, which I'm not a big fan of philosophy. I'm not even gonna get started. I took a philosophy class, I took a state history class, I took I think like a US History 1 and US History 2. So I think those might have been it. There might have been one other class I'm forgetting. There is one more class. I took a writing class. It was a total blow off and I did that last semester just because I needed the credit. One thing I would really highly suggest for people who want to get a little bit more organized, especially if you are taking online classes, is to get a planner. It doesn't have to be an expensive planner. Like I've got one of these Erin Condren ones that are, you know, $60, which you don't need. I wish I would have had this in college. I feel like it would have made my life a little more organized. I was still pretty organized in college. What I used in college, I had one of those giant like desk calendars that I just hung right next to my desk, and that's where I kept track of all my homework on it. It was super easy. I would even do like a countdown to graduation on that, and every day I would put a big huge X through each day. I guess when you really visualize your homework, for me, I'm a very visual learner, it was just so much easier when I could see, okay, here's Monday, this is due, this is due, this is due, you know, get Monday done and then just focus on that rather than just kind of like, oh, I'll remember that, and then, you know, come midnight I'm like, holy shit, do I have a paper due tomorrow? Because that's happened before. But just go to class. I know it sucks like getting up if you're taking an 8 a.m. class or anything, but every single day you're not in class is like just wasted money. If you've paid for college out of pocket or even scholarship money, it's like every day you're not there, it's like, well, that's another $75 I just wasted for not going to class that day. I promise you, like 80% of the work really is just showing up and being there, being present for the hour, the 50 minutes, the 3 hours, however long your class is. Just really make it a priority because you've worked so hard to get to college in the first place. You definitely want to not waste it by just not going to class. Record lectures if your professors allow it. I had a professor that she was like, please record the lectures because it will help you so much. And it honestly really did help me a lot. You know, everyone's got smartphones with a voice memo recording feature. Definitely utilize that. And with those classes, they were art history classes, and they were just so information dense, like really heavy stuff. Number one, it took a little less stress off me when it came to taking notes in class. Now, I still took notes in class just as I would normally. When you're so caught up in taking notes, the information isn't really like sinking in. It's just kind of like going in one ear, enough time to write it down, and then going out the other. So with this, I was able to take a little more simpler notes, but I was able to really concentrate in class more and really make those visual connections with the audio that I was hearing. And it took little to no extra effort on my part, even for something like that's not art history. I mean, that could work for really almost any other class. Just always make sure that your professors are okay with it. You know, you can always go up to them and say, hey, this is something I like to do. It really helps me study. Do you mind if I record the lecture? Most professors I've ever come in contact with that I wanted to do that with, they were like, sure, no problem. It was never something you know, that they were not okay with. So another thing that was always going on my campus, even though it was a smaller campus, it was totally a pretty lively campus, I would say, especially when the weather was really nice. Like every day there would be like free food on the campus, like green. I don't know, take advantage of that. There's not many times in life when you're just gonna have like all of this free food at your fingertips, so definitely take advantage of it. Internships. Internships can be scary. They can be overwhelming, but do as many as you can. I only did one and I really regret not doing more. I did one my very last semester of college and I loved the place that I interned at. I really wish I could have gotten a job there, but there just wasn't a position opening at the moment. But I had such an amazing time there. It was a small ad agency, about a group of, you know, maybe 10 people or less, and it was just a really fun working environment, and they were so kind of laid back. They were a work hard, play hard kind of group, and they were just, I feel like I learned a lot from them, and I just have a lot of respect for them, and I wish I would have done more internships. I wish I could have done longer internships with them. And of course, getting a lot of work experience can be great for after college. And the last little bit of advice I have is a little bit more geared towards people who either just are really anxious in general. I'm a very anxious person. I'm a very introverted person. I'm not very outgoing at all, and college really kind of scared me because it was one of the first times I really felt kind of on my own. And I don't really mean to make that sound negative. A lot of my anxiety is triggered from like new situations, new like environments or new people, not knowing where I'm going or something like that. I like to know, you have clear, concise directions. Where am I going? Where exactly is this? I don't like looking stupid or looking lost, and I don't like asking for help, which is kind of a flaw of mine. I sometimes would struggle on my own when it would have been just fine if I had just said, hey, can you show me where this is? On the school website or whatever, they would have like maps of the campus, which was obviously very helpful so I could know what building my class was in. But they also had things like blueprints of like each floor of each building, like with like emergency exit routes and stuff like that, which was also helpful. But for me, it was helpful because it would show me like what classroom, where exactly it was, so I'd know, oh, okay, so this is room 311, so it's going to be on the 3rd floor and it's going to be down this wing. And that was something that was really helpful for me to look up where my classes were, like specifically what classroom and where it was before ever having to go there. So that is it for my college advice. Like I said, I know my experience is not the typical college student. You know, I'm not, you know, going away far from home. I'm not living in a dorm. I'm not joining a sorority. But my college experience was my own, and I really loved it. I had a great time. I felt like I picked a school that was perfect for me. It was perfect for my situation, and I really had a great time at university. I know a lot of people don't. I know a lot of people don't feel like they picked the right school, or there's a lot of pressures, or they don't have the right major, and I just had a really great college experience. So I hope my advice can help you guys a bit. I know, like I said, it's kind of a different kind of college experience, but like I said, I think a lot of things I've said can really be applied to many different majors and situations and stuff like that. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Feel free to ask me any questions if I left anything out. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. You can follow me on Instagram, link is below. And until my next video, I will talk to you guys later. Bye.